Today we're going to talk about the new APX radios. So let's start by talking about some of the buttons on the radio. If you look at the top, this button turns the radio on and off, then that's your volume control. Then you've got the ABC button. A is zone 1, B is zone 2, and C is zone 3. The next button here is the channel selector, and then the orange button is the emergency button. If you look towards the front, this slide switch down here is your scan list. So when you're scanning, you'll see that Z come up just like on the old radios. And then when you're not scanning, that Z is off, and you'll hear the Motorola lady say you're in monitor mode. So looking at the side, you've got that purple button. That purple button is a zone down button. The push to talk button right here. This middle button is a signal strength indicator. So if you push that, it will say Site 1, and this says RSSI, Radio Signal Strength Indicator, and it's going to give you a number. Here it's 75. And you want that number to be ultimately above 60. Right now it's not that extreme important because our system is still analog, and the signal goes from high to low in kind of a curve. So these radios will actually work till that number is down between like 35 and 40. But once we change over to digital, there is no curve. You don't have static or anything like that. It's either you hear it or you don't. So that's where that 60 number is going to come into play, is when we change over to the digital system, which should be sometime in March. And you'll hear me mention that several times, but that's what that middle button does. Now, if you push and hold that middle button in, it's going to say scanning site. So push it and hold it. And what that is it's looking for another tower. If you're in an area that the tower is busy, or you're actually closer to another tower, it'll scan and look for another tower. Right now we don't necessarily need to use that. It's not going to work until the new system happens. You can try that and see if that might help if you have a radio issue where you can't get out because the tower you're on is busy, or you might be closer to a different tower. That's what that button is for. The next button below that is a programmable button. So basically what that is you can program that button to be a one-touch operation where it takes you to a specific talk group. And that's this is going to be kind of station unit specific. So here at station 18, we have that button programmed to where when you hit it, it takes us to airport ops. So if we have a call at the airport, we don't have to fumble through the radio to get to zone 10, which is the airport zone, and then scroll over to airport ops. We can just hit that one button and it'll take us to airport ops. So you can program that button for units that ride on the interstate. You can program that maybe for IMAPs. If you're close to UNCG like Station 5, you might want to program that button for UNCG police so you can talk to them direct. It's programmable for your area, and if you don't want to program it for something, you don't have to. You can program it for Zone 1, Position 1 dispatch if you want. You can program it for Zone 1, Position 2 ops, GFD TAC, whatever you want to do, but that's unit specific. In talking about that, you have a little house button here on the front. That house button is your home button, just like the old radios. So when you push and hold that button, no matter where the radio is sitting at, what channel it's on, it's going to take you back to Position 1, Zone 1, which is GCF dispatch. The little computer icon here, that's actually turns your light on and off. So if you don't want to do anything but just turn the light on the screen, you can push that button and the light's going to come up. Looking at the screen itself, on the right hand side, upper right hand corner, is the battery indicator, how much energy you got left in your battery. The next little icon looks like an airplane. That's the GPS signal. So if you're getting a GPS signal, it'll be solid. If it's not getting a GPS signal, it'll blink. So a lot of times if you're inside, it's going to be blinking because it doesn't have a GPS signal. It can't see the satellite outside. Once you get outside, that'll go solid. The H there just means that the radio's talking on high power as high as it can. And then down here in the left is zone. So if you want to change zones this way, you can push that zone button. And you see GCF 14 through 19 is highlighted. So you scroll down and then it'll go to whatever highlighted zone you're in. Whatever that blue line is on that's highlighted, that's what you're looking at. So let's say it's, you want to go to zone 3, then you hit select and it's going to take you to zone 3. On the old radios, you could just go to that zone. You didn't have to hit anything else and it would do it automatically. On these, you have to go where you want, highlight it, and then once you're there, you hit that select button and it'll take you to that zone. So right now we're in zone 4. If you want to get back to zone 1, for instance, you can use the button on the side to go down. You can take your A, B, C button, which is sitting in A now. You can see it up here. Flip it up to B or C and then back down to A. That's going to take you back to zone 1. Or you could just push and hold the home button, and that's going to take you back to zone 1, position 1. So looking at the screen here, the second button in your menu, it says nuisance. So what that's for is you have a scan list that's set as a default in your radio. And what's in that scan list is GCF dispatch, ops, GFD TAC, GCCOM, and fire EMS. That's what's in your scan list. So let's say, for instance, you're out on a call and you have scan on, and there may be another call going on somewhere else, and somebody is reading vital signs, for instance, on fire EMS. If you want to knock that out of your scan list, you can hit that nuisance button, and that'll knock that out of your scan list temporarily. Now, if you flip the scan button on the top on and back off again, it's going to automatically put that back into your scan list. Or if you turn the radio on and back off, that's going to put it back into your scan list. So it just does it temporarily until you do one of those two things. So the next button on your screen is MS2. I'm going to explain that a little bit later, but that's a programmable button just like that one on the side. It's programmable as well. I'm going to explain later what that's going to be for. So if you hit the right arrow, you see scan list. So we'll push the scan list, and this is the scan list that's in your radio. Whatever's highlighted is what you're reading. So right now, GCF dispatch is highlighted in blue, and you see at the top a Z with a blinky dot. That means that's my #1 priority. Then you have GCF ops, that's highlighted. You've got a Z with a solid dot. That's priority 2. Okay, GFD TAC is highlighted. And there's a Z, so that's in my scan list. GFD TAC 14. There's no Z, so it's not in my scan list. TAC 15, not in my scan list. So we're going to scroll down here until we get to GCCOM. There's a Z up top, that's in my scan list. And fire EMS, that's in my scan list. So that's it for your scan list in zone 1. So I'm going to push the home button and hold it. That's going to take me back to zone 1 and position 1. So the next button over in your menu is BT. That's Bluetooth. That should be off, and it is. If you wanted to turn it on, that would be here. You'd turn it back on. And what the Bluetooth is for is it actually can connect to Bluetooth devices. Hazmat has a couple of Bluetooth devices in their face pieces, and that's something that we're looking at testing to kind of help talking when you've got your face piece on. So ultimately that's probably what that Bluetooth is going to be used for, but maybe in the future Some of the officers or chiefs, pump operators may have a headset that's Bluetooth. You may have an earpiece that's Bluetooth, but that's something that we could use in the future. So the next button over on your menu is probably one of the most important, and that's the battery button. You have an icon in the upper right hand corner that tells you where your battery's at, but this is a little bit more detailed information. So when you push that battery button, you get this that comes up, and it tells you that the charge is 40%, the capacity, that's how much energy is left in that battery, and how many charges that it's had so far. So what we're suggesting to people is that if you go in the morning and you check your radio, one thing you want to check is the hit that button, go through the menu, hit that button, and actually find out what percentage your battery is sitting on. Because if it's at 30%, change it. Go get a new battery, a full battery. If it's at 50%, keep in mind that you may be able to ride a call or two, and after that you're going to need to change your battery. So just keep those things in mind. What we're finding out is that a lot of times what's happening is that the battery won't alert you that it's getting low. It's supposed to alert you when it's at 20%, but it's not alerting you at all that it's getting low. And you go to you don't check this, for instance, in the morning, and you go to transmit, and when you do, the radio bonks you like the system's busy or it won't transmit. And when you look down, you see that red light blinking and it says battery low, but it didn't actually give you any kind of a warning, and it's not letting you transmit at all. And the other thing that we're seeing happen is that sometimes the battery will alert you that the battery is going low, and it'll let you transmit 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 times, but after that it won't let you talk at all. And sometimes you turn the radio off and back on again and it'll fix that, but that's something that we're working with Motorola to try and fix. And one other issue that we've had is there's a date code on the batteries, and I'll show you that too. In a way of taking the battery off, there's 2 tabs. There's a tab here, and then there's a tab there. And you just pull those 2 tabs apart and the battery comes off. But there's a date code. So this date code is 1733. You can see there on that second line below the bar graph. So, or barcode. 1733. The date codes of batteries that we've had issues with so far have been the date code of 1719. So if you have batteries that have that date code, just check it and let us know. We don't really have any to give you to replace them. Just know that when those get low, to go ahead and change them and switch them out. As soon as we get something to replace that with, we're doing that as we can to get them replaced by Motorola, but just be aware of that. So another thing to keep in mind is the speaker mic. When the speaker mic gets attached to the radio, it takes a second or two for those to talk to each other. So when you're checking the radio in the morning and you change channels, for instance, turn the radio on, let it recognize the speaker mic, and it doesn't take long, maybe a second, but you'll hear it once the radio's on, and you'll hear the Motorola voice identify whatever channel it's on. As soon as that happens, you'll see the speaker mic, the light comes on the speaker mic, and then it goes off. And after that happens, the speaker mic and the radio are talking, and you can use the speaker mic and change channels.
Guilford Fire Tax 60.
And you'll see that the channels are changing.
Guilford Fire Tax 17. Guilford Fire Tax 60.
And remember, whatever channel that radio is on when you turn it off, that's what channel it's going to be on when you turn it back on, just like the old radios. So if I turn this radio off, right now we're on Tax 16. If I turn this radio off and I come back to my speaker mic and I turn it all the way over to position 1, which should be dispatch, right? when I turn this radio back on, what channel is it going to go to? It should go back to TAC 16,
Guilford
right?
Fire TAC 16.
And it does. Okay, now I want to show you, if you turn it on like I was saying earlier, and you try and change channels before these two recognize each other. So I'm turning the radio on, and I'm already changing channels because I want to change.
16.
And you see it didn't change. I was changing channels, the radio was on, but the radio didn't change. The reason for that is there wasn't enough time for the radio and the mic to talk to each other. Now there's enough time, so now I can change channels, and you can see it's going to change.
Guilford Fire TAC 15.
So since we're talking about the speaker mic, let's go ahead and go over the buttons on it. Again, the top, you've got the selector knob to change channels. This is the emergency button. And one thing to know about the emergency button, just like on the radio itself, if you push this down, it's not going to go off. You've got to push it down and hold it for about a second before it'll actually activate. And one thing you can do is you can take the radio and go to Fire VR.
Fire VR.
And you can practice how long that has to get held down for it to activate. So there it went off. And when it goes off, the little LED light that's on here, it blinks SOS. To reset it, just like you reset the old radio, you can push and hold it down. And that resets it. Or you can simply turn the radio on and back off. And then that'll reset it as well. The easiest thing to do is just to push the button and hold it down. Then looking up here at the top, you've got a Bluetooth indicator and then a transmit and receive indicator. This little ramp button here on the side is volume up and volume down. On the front is that little LED flashlight. If you push that in and hold it, that's a flashlight which comes in pretty handy in the dark. The side is the push to talk, and then this round circle. That round circle is zone up. So our thought process with that was, when we were doing some testing with these radios, was when you have the radio in the strap, the speaker mic is going to be up and the radio is going to be down. So that's why your zone down is this purple button. You can get to that pretty easy with your gloved hand and go zone down, or you can go zone up since you're reaching up to your speaker mic. And you can do that without having to take the radio out of your holster like we had to with the old radio. So hopefully that'll help going from zone to zone without having to get that out of the holster. When we talk about the microphone, one thing to know is that this microphone is special from any other microphone. It's got 5 microphones in it, and it has special noise canceling software in it. So when the microphone is attached to the radio, there's a program that all that uses to make it work right. And why that's important is, let's say that you buy your own speaker mic, like on eBay or something like that, and it works with the APX radio. Well, when you go to plug it into the APX radio, it's going to go to a default setting. And what that means is that it's not going to work near as good as this microphone that has 5 mics on it, especially when we talk about holding the microphone up to your face piece, which is really important. So holding the microphone to your face piece, what we found is through a bunch of testing, is that with this radio, especially when you're using the digital channels, is that holding the microphone, for us, we're in a Scott SCBA, holding the microphone near the voice port, which is a little circular kind of protrusion on the lower left-hand side of your mask. Holding that about 1 to 2 inches away when you're talking is the sweet spot. That's the best place to have that where it sounds the best coming through the radio. So we're just going to kind of demonstrate on where that is on a mask. So if you can think about, here's where your regulator is going to be, and you're going to have the bypass right here. If you think about the front part of your fingers hitting that bypass, you're in the right area. You want it 1 to 2 inches away for that to sound the best. And I would just say that use that, train with it, and so you know where to put that to get it in that sweet spot. It's not going to be really detrimental if you just have your SCBA on and you're breathing normally. But when that vibro alert is going off and your pass device is going off, it really needs to be in this location to work the best. So we're trying to get out to just train with this, so when you have your air pack on, that's where you're talking on the microphone, and that'll give you the best chance of being heard. Okay, so let's talk about some other things. I've talked about the radio system is going to change to digital, which is supposed to happen sometime in March. Part of that process is that we have the digital system already into these radios so that there can be a transition of going from one system to the new system without having to grab these radios and physically reprogram them. But everything kind of looks the same, and it can get kind of confusing, so we wanted to go over that. So the new radio system starts in zone 21, and all the channels start with a P. So you'll hear the voice say, when you go to that zone, if it's the new system, which is a P25 system, it will say P25 zone. And then each channel will have a P in front of it. And I'm going to show you that so you can hear it. And what's going to happen is that when I go to that zone, since that system's not there, eventually it's going to say out of range, because it's looking for a system that's not there. So I don't know if you heard that. I'm going to go to another one so you can hear it.
P25 Zone 2.
Keys, Guilford Fire TAC 25.
So the reason for that is we've had a lot of people that they may accidentally get here, and when you go,
P25 Zone 1.
it looks a lot like the normal radio system. Here you see that P1, so that kind of gives you an indication, but if you're looking at the top screen, there's nothing different there. So it can be kind of confusing. But if you get to this point and your radio says out of range, which has happened to some of the folks out there, if you push and hold your home button, that should take you back to position 1, zone 1, which is GFD dispatch. So if it does and that fixes your problem, then you just got into the P25 zone accidentally somehow. Now, one thing to remember is when we do change over, then this right here would actually be our new dispatch. And all of your TAC channels, you can see 14 through 19 will be here. So if you need to go to TAC 24, you would go up to that P2 zone to go to 24 through 29 and so on and so forth. So the problem here is, well, okay, since we changed over to the new radio system, then if I want to go, for instance, from here and I want to go back to my P1 zone, my number 1 zone in dispatch, if I hit the home button, where's that going to take me? It's going to take me back to the old radio system, position 1, zone 1, right? So when we change over, that's not going to work anymore. That's where this MS2 button that I talked about before comes in handy.
Guilford Fire.
So what happens then, once we get to that point that we're going to start changing over, we'll reprogram that MS2 button to be your new home button, and that'll take you to zone 21, position 1, which is will be the new dispatch. That's going to be the use for that MS2 button. In this radio too, there's if you're at zone 1 and you go down a zone, there's what's called a personal zone.
Trail rescue.
So if you go into that personal zone, you can actually load
SPS Command 1.
your own talk groups into this zone if you want
Fire
to.
operations.
We went ahead and put some in here already
Guilford
so that when
Fire
you didn't
Green
land on this, it would be blank.
Command 1.
But there's some useful stuff in here. PS Command, if you're talking with the police, or interoperability between public safety, uses PS Command, PS Ops.
Operation.
IMAPS is in here if you're riding calls on the interstate. LZ Central, if you need to talk to a helicopter directly, that's where you would do that at.
Trail rescue.
Trail Rescue calls out on the trails.
UNC.
UNCG is in here. And then blank. And you see in the lower right it says Zone PR. That's what you push to program that. And again, there's a video for that. If you go to Central Station, every station has a folder under their shared folders that says 2017 APX radios. And in there is the PowerPoint from EMT. And there's two videos that you can click on in that PowerPoint. One is how to program this personal zone, and then the other one is how to program your scan list. But this radio also has Viper in it, and I just wanted to go over what that is real quick. So if you go to zone V, which is Viper, 30, it says statewide Viper.
Guilford Fire Dispatch. North Carolina state law. Inform state fire.
So what the Viper system is it's a statewide radio system. You can talk statewide on these channels. It's a radio system kind of like ours here. It's just connected throughout the whole state. So that's what the statewide radio system is. That's called Viper, voice interoperability for first responders, and they just call that the North Carolina Viper system. So that's what that is. And then all the different counties and agencies that are on the Viper system that are around us are also in these radios. So there's a lot of stuff in here, just letting you know that that's what the Viper system is. Now keep in mind that the Viper system, they use different towers than we do for our Greensboro system. So you may not have a very good Viper signal, but you've got a good Greensboro signal. Just keep that in mind. Well, I hope that's been informative for everybody. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And once again, welcome to the neighborhood.